The hot tub steam curled into the night air, wrapping us in a cocoon of warmth against the crisp autumn chill. I watched Ethan's silhouette, his broad shoulders slicing through the water as he laughed, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. For 10 years, he'd been my anchor, my best friend, but tonight, his careless touch threatened to unravel everything. We were at his family's cabin in the Colorado mountains, a place we'd escaped to every fall since high school. Ethan, 25, all easy grins and unshakable confidence, was the kind of guy who could charm a room without trying. Me, Jamie, same age, quieter, gay, and hopelessly in love with him since junior year. I'd buried it deep, locked it away behind late-night video games and shared beers. But tonight, the lock was breaking. Yo, Jamie, you good? Ethan's voice cut through my thoughts. He was leaning back, arms spread wide, water dripping from his dark blonde hair. His hazel eyes caught the porch light, glinting with that reckless spark that always pulled me in. Yeah, just zoning out. I lied, forcing a smile. The truth was, I was drowning in the way he looked at me like I was his brother, his ride or die, nothing more. And I hated myself for wanting more. He climbed out of the hot tub, water cascading down his toned frame, and I averted my eyes, pretending to study the stars. The air felt heavier now, charged with something I couldn't name. Then, without warning, he plopped onto my lap, his damp skin warm against mine, his laugh loud and carefree. Dude, move over. You're hogging the best spot. My heart stopped. His weight, his closeness, it was too much. I froze, every nerve screaming, while he just sat there, oblivious, scrolling through his phone, like it meant nothing, like I meant nothing. Ethan, get off, I muttered, my voice tighter than I intended. He turned, smirking. What? I'm too heavy for you. Weak. He ruffled my hair, and I wanted to scream. Not because I hated it, but because I loved it too much. That moment broke something in me. 10 years of friendship, of late-night talks and stupid bets, and I was still just his buddy. But as he leaned back against me, humming some dumb song, I realized I couldn't keep pretending. Not anymore. The cabin was quiet when we finally went inside, the fire crackling in the living room. Ethan sprawled on the couch, tossing a football between his hands. You're acting weird, man, he said, not looking up. What's up? I stood by the window, staring at the dark woods outside. My reflection stared back, pale and tired. Nothing, I said, but the word tasted like ash. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to grab him by the shoulders and confess that every laugh, every touch, every stupid nickname he gave me was killing me. But the fear of losing him, of shattering the only family I had left, kept the words locked in my throat. Ethan's parents had taken me in when I was 15, after my own kicked me out for coming out. They were kind, but Ethan was my home. Losing him would be like losing air. Bullshit, he said, sitting up. His eyes narrowed. Serious now. You've been off all night. Talk to me. I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. It's not that simple, Ethan. Then make it simple. He stood, crossing the room in 3 strides. He was close now. Too close. His concern cutting deeper than his indifference ever could. You're my best friend, Jamie. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. I laughed, bitter and raw. You don't get it, do you? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Sharp and reckless. His brow furrowed, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. What don't I get? He asked. Softer now. I opened my mouth, but the truth wouldn't come. Not yet. Instead, I turned away, muttering, "Forget it. I'm tired." That night, I lay awake in the guest room, the ceiling beams staring down like silent judges. Ethan's snores echoed from the next room, steady and untroubled, while I wrestled with a truth that could either set me free or destroy everything. I didn't know how to tell him I loved him not as a friend, but as something more, something he could never give back. By morning, the air was thick with tension. Ethan was quieter than usual, his jokes half-hearted as we hiked through the pines. The trail was steep, the kind of path that forced you to focus. But my mind was elsewhere. Every step felt like a countdown to a moment I wasn't ready for. "You gonna tell me what's eating you?" he asked, pausing by a stream. He tossed a rock into the water, watching the ripples spread. "Or do I have to guess?" I wanted to laugh, to deflect, to keep pretending. But the weight of it all, 10 years of silence, of loving him in secret, was crushing me. "Ethan," I started, my voice barely above a whisper. "What if I told you something that changed everything?" He froze, the rock in his hand forgotten. "Like what?" My heart pounded, loud enough to drown out the stream. This was it. The edge of the cliff. One step, and there was no going back. I swallowed hard, the words clawing at my throat. Ethan's eyes were locked on mine, searching, waiting. The forest around us felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. "Jamie, you're freaking me out," he said, dropping the rock. It hit the ground with a dull thud. "Just say it." I couldn't. Not yet. The fear was a living thing, coiling around my chest, whispering that this would end us. Instead, I shook my head, forcing a weak smile. "It's nothing, man. Just stressed about work." His shoulders relaxed, but his frown didn't. "Work. That's it." He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. "You don't get like this over spreadsheets. Jamie, come on." He was right. I was a terrible liar, especially to him. Ethan knew me better than anyone. Every tick, every tell. Growing up, we'd shared everything: secrets, dreams, even the time we stole his dad's whiskey and got sick in the backyard. But this was a line I'd never crossed. "Let's keep moving," I said, brushing past him. My voice was steady, but my hands shook as I adjusted my backpack. He didn't push, but I felt his eyes on me as we hiked, the silence heavier than the pack on my shoulders. Back at the cabin, Ethan suggested a fire pit to shake off the chill. We sat outside, the flames casting shadows on his face. He was quieter now, nursing a beer, his usual energy dimmed. I hated that I was doing this to him, to us. But the truth was a wildfire, and I couldn't contain it much longer. "Remember senior year?" he said suddenly, staring into the fire. "When you told me you were gay?" My stomach dropped. He rarely brought it up, not because he cared, but because he didn't accepted it like it was just another fact, like my love for pizza or my shitty jump shot. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "Why?" He shrugged, tossing a stick into the flames. "You were so scared to tell me. Like you thought I'd bolt or something." He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "I didn't, though. Did I?" "No," I said softly. "You didn't." He nodded, satisfied. But the air between us crackled with something new. "So why do I feel like you're scared again?" I gripped my beer bottle, the glass cold against my palm. He was too close to the truth, and I wasn't ready. "I'm not scared," I lied, my voice barely steady. "Just dealing with stuff." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his gaze piercing. "You're full of shit, Jamie." You've been my best friend since we were kids. I know when something's eating you. I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to. But the image of his face twisting in discomfort. Or worse, pity, stopped me cold. Drop it, Ethan. I snapped, sharper than I meant to. He flinched, and guilt hit me like a punch. Fine, he said, standing abruptly. But don't shut me out. Man, I'm here. He walked inside, leaving me alone with the fire and my cowardice. The next day, Ethan acted like nothing had happened. All smiles and bad jokes as we fished at the lake. But I could feel the rift growing. A hairline crack in our foundation. I hated it. But I didn't know how to fix it without risking everything. That afternoon, he got a call from his girlfriend, Sarah. She was sweet, sharp, the kind of person who fit him perfectly. I listened to him laugh, his voice softening as he talked to her, and jealousy twisted in my gut. Not because I wanted to be Sarah, but because I wanted to be the one who made him sound like that. When he hung up, he caught me staring. What? He asked, grinning. You jealous of my charm? I forced a laugh, but it felt hollow. Yeah, sure. Teach me your ways, Casanova. He tossed a pebble at me, missing by a mile. You don't need my moves. Jamie, you're a catch. He said it so casually, like it was nothing, but it landed like a grenade in my chest. That night, we cooked steaks on the grill, the routine grounding me. But as we sat at the table, the weight of my silence grew unbearable. Ethan was halfway through a story about work when I interrupted, my voice low. What if I told you I'm in love with someone? He stopped, fork halfway to his mouth. Whoa. What? You holding out on me? His grin was wide, but his eyes were sharp. Curious. Who is it? My pulse raced. I could lie, make up a name, keep the peace. But I was tired of hiding. It's complicated, I said, my voice shaking. Complicated how? He leaned in, all traces of humor gone. Come on, man. Spill. I looked at him, really looked at him. The way his hair fell into his eyes. The way his jaw tightened when he was focused. The way he'd always been there, no matter what. And I realized I couldn't keep doing this. Not to him. Not to myself. It's you, I whispered, the words barely audible. But they were out, and there was no taking them back. Ethan's fork clattered onto his plate. The silence that followed was deafening, heavier than the mountain air outside. His eyes, wide with shock, locked onto mine, and I felt exposed, like I'd stripped naked in front of him. Me? He said finally, his voice low, uncertain. You're in love with me. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. My hands gripped the edge of the table, bracing for the fallout. I'd pictured this moment 1,000 times: his anger, his rejection, his laughter, but nothing prepared me for the way he just stared, like he was seeing me for the first time. Jamie, he ran a hand through his hair, his face a mix of confusion and something else I couldn't read. How long? Years, I admitted, my voice raw. Since we were 16. Maybe longer. He leaned back, exhaling sharply. Jesus, why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't want to lose you. The words burst out, louder than I meant. You're my best friend. Ethan. My family. I thought if I told you, you'd freak out. Or worse, you'd pity me. He flinched, and I hated how vulnerable I sounded. But there was no going back now. The truth was a flood, and I was caught in its current. I wouldn't pity you, he said quietly, his eyes searching mine. I don't know what to say. Man, I'm not gay. I know, I said, my voice breaking. I know you're not. I never expected you to feel the same. I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't there. He stood, pacing the small kitchen, his hands restless. This is a lot. Jamie. I mean, we've been through everything together. Everything. And now, he stopped, looking at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Why now? Because you sat on my lap, I said, half laughing, half crying. Like it was nothing. Like you didn't know what it did to me. And I realized I can't keep living like this. Ethan, I can't keep acting like your closeness doesn't tear me apart. He froze, his face paling. I didn't know, he said softly. I didn't. I wasn't thinking. I know, I said again, softer this time. It's not your fault. It's mine for not saying anything sooner. The air between us was thick, charged with years of unspoken truths. He sat back down, his hands clasped tightly. So what now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What do you want from me? I don't know, I admitted. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens, I needed to be honest. He nodded slowly, his jaw tight. I need some time. Okay. It's a lot. I nodded, my chest aching. Take all the time you need. The rest of the night was quiet. Ethan retreated to his room, and I stayed up, staring at the fire until it burned to embers. I'd done it. I'd told him. And now, I had no idea what came next. The next morning, Ethan was already up when I came downstairs. He was making coffee, his movements mechanical. Morning, he said, not meeting my eyes. Morning, I replied, the word feeling foreign. We moved around each other like strangers, the ease of our friendship replaced by a cautious distance. We spent the day hiking again, but the silence was different now, fragile, like glass. I caught him glancing at me, his expression unreadable. And every time, my heart sank a little deeper. I'd broken something, and I didn't know if we could fix it. By afternoon, he finally spoke. We were sitting on a rocky outcrop, the valley stretching below us. I don't want to lose you, Jamie, he said, his voice low. You're my best friend, my brother. But it changes things. I know, I said, my throat tight. I didn't want it to, but it does. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the weight of it in his eyes. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to be what you need. You don't have to be anything, I said, forcing the words out. Just be you. That's enough. But it wasn't. Not really. And we both knew it. That night, back at the cabin, Ethan suggested we watch a movie. Like old times. We picked some dumb action flick. But neither of us was really watching. Halfway through, he turned to me, his voice hesitant. Have you ever tried to move on? Like, dated other guys? I nodded. Yeah. A few. But it's hard when. I stopped, not wanting to finish the sentence. When what? He pressed. When they're not you, I said quietly. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stared at the screen. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. I wish I could give you what you want, Jamie. I really do. Those words, kind as they were, cut deeper than any rejection. Because they were final. A door closing, gently but firmly. The cabin felt smaller after that, the walls closing in with every unspoken word. Ethan and I moved through the next day like ghosts. Polite but distant. I hated it, but I didn't know how to bridge the gap I'd created. We drove back to Denver in silence, the radio filling the void. Ethan's hands gripped the wheel, his knuckles white. I stared out the window, watching the mountains fade into the distance, wondering if this was the beginning of the end. Back in the city, life resumed its rhythm, but nothing felt the same. Ethan still texted me, still invited me to grab beers with our friends. But there was a hesitancy now, a carefulness that hadn't been there before. I missed the old Ethan, the one who'd sling an arm around me without thinking, who'd crash on my couch after a late night. Now, every touch, every glance, felt calculated. A week later, we met at our usual dive bar. Sarah was there, her arm linked through Ethan's, her laughter bright. I liked her, she was good for him, but seeing them together was a fresh kind of hell. I nursed my beer, trying to act normal, but Ethan's eyes kept finding mine, like he was checking if I was okay. "You good, Jamie?" Sarah asked, her smile genuine. "Yeah," I lied, forcing a grin. "Just tired." Ethan didn't buy it. When Sarah went to the bathroom, he leaned in, his voice low. "You sure you're okay? You've been quiet." I wanted to scream. Quiet. I was screaming inside. Every day, every second I had to pretend I wasn't breaking. But I just shrugged. "I'm fine, man. Don't worry about me." He frowned. But before he could push, Sarah came back, and the moment passed. That night, I went home and stared at my ceiling, the same way I had at the cabin. I couldn't keep doing this, living in the shadow of what I felt, watching him build a life with someone else. I needed to let go, but the thought of losing him, even a little, felt like losing myself. The next day, I did something reckless. I signed up for a dating app. Maybe Ethan was right, maybe I needed to try harder to move on. I matched with a guy named Lucas, 27, a graphic designer with a warm smile and a quick wit. We met for coffee, and he was easy to talk to. Kind. Interested. But every time he laughed, I saw Ethan. Every time he touched my hand, I wished it was someone else. I kept seeing Lucas, though, because I had to try. We went on hikes, watched indie films, shared late-night tacos. He was good, solid, the kind of guy I could have loved in another life. But he wasn't Ethan, and that was the problem. One night, after a date, Lucas kissed me outside my apartment. It was soft, tentative, and I wanted to feel something, anything, but all I felt was the ache of what I'd never have. "You're somewhere else," Lucas said gently, pulling back. "Aren't you?" I nodded, ashamed. "I'm sorry. It's not you." He smiled, sad but understanding. "Whoever he is, I hope he knows how lucky he is." I didn't have the heart to tell him Ethan didn't want me. Not like that. A month passed, and Ethan started to notice the change. "You're different," he said one day, as we grabbed lunch at a diner. "You're happier." I shrugged, picking at my fries, trying to be. He studied me, his eyes narrowing. "You seeing someone?" "Yeah," I said, keeping it vague. "Early days." His jaw tightened, just for a second, before he nodded. "Good for you, man. That's good." But it didn't feel good. It felt like I was betraying him, even though he'd never asked me to wait. I hated how much I still cared about his reaction, how much I wanted him to care. That night, I got a text from him. "Can we talk?" Like, really talk. My heart raced as I typed back, "Sure." "When?" "Tomorrow. My place. 7. I barely slept, my mind spinning with possibilities. Was he angry? Hurt? Did he miss the old us as much as I did? By the time I knocked on his door, my nerves were shot. He opened it, looking tired, his hair a mess. Hey, he said, stepping aside. Come in. The apartment smelled like coffee and his cologne, a mix that hit me like a memory. We sat on his couch, the silence stretching until he finally spoke. I've been thinking about what you said. At the cabin. My stomach dropped. Okay. I don't know how to do this. Jamie, he said, his voice rough. You're my best friend. I love you. Man. But, not like that. And I hate that it hurts you. I nodded, my throat burning. I know. But I don't want to lose you, he said, his eyes pleading. Can we figure this out? Together. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe we could go back. But deep down, I knew some things couldn't be undone. I looked at Ethan, his face open, vulnerable in a way I'd rarely seen. He was really trying to hold on to what we had. But the truth hung between us, heavy and unyielding. I want that too, I said, my voice low. But I don't know if I can. He frowned, leaning forward. What do you mean? I mean, I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way, I said, the words spilling out. Every time I'm around you, it's there. Every time you laugh, or touch me, or call me buddy, it's like a knife. I can't just switch it off. He looked down, his hands clasped tightly. I didn't know it was that bad. He said quietly, I thought we could just keep going. I laughed, bitter and hollow. That's the problem. Ethan, you can. I can't. He flinched, and I hated myself for it. But I was done hiding. I've spent years trying to be okay with just being your friend. I continued. And I love our friendship. I do. But it's killing me to want more and know I'll never have it. He stood, pacing the small living room. So what are you saying? You want to just walk away? No, I said quickly. I don't want that. But I need space. Time to figure out how to live with this without falling apart. His face crumpled, just for a second, before he caught himself. Space, he repeated, like the word was foreign. Okay, if that's what you need. It wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was his laugh, his warmth, his everything. But I nodded, because it was the only way forward. The next few weeks were a blur. I pulled back, skipping our usual hangouts, texting less. Ethan tried to reach out, but I kept my replies short, polite. It felt like cutting off a limb, but I needed to breathe, to find a version of myself that didn't revolve around him. Lucas and I kept seeing each other, and I threw myself into it, hoping it would fill the void. He was patient, funny, and didn't push when I was distant. One night, as we walked through downtown Denver, he took my hand, and for the first time, I didn't pull away. It wasn't Ethan, but it was something. A start. But Ethan wasn't gone. He was everywhere in the songs we used to blast, the bars we haunted, the memories that haunted me. One night, he showed up at my apartment unannounced, his face drawn, his eyes tired. You're avoiding me, he said, leaning against the doorframe. I told you I needed space, I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. I know, he said, stepping inside. But this sucks. Jamie, I miss you. I closed the door, my hands shaking. I miss you too. But I can't keep doing this dance. It's not fair to either of us. He looked at me, his eyes searching. What if I don't want you to move on? What if I don't want to lose what we have? My heart stopped. What are you saying? I don't know, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. I can't imagine my life without you. And yeah, I'm not into guys. But you're not just some guy. You're Jamie. For a moment, I let myself hope. Maybe he didn't love me the way I loved him, but maybe he could love me enough to keep us together. But then I saw Sarah's jacket on his couch, her laugh in my memory, and I knew it wasn't enough. I can't be your exception, Ethan, I said softly. I deserve more than that. And so do you. He didn't argue, but the hurt in his eyes was raw. So what now? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. But I need to figure out who I am without you being my everything. He nodded, his jaw tight. Okay. But I'm not giving up on us. Not yet. He left, and I stood there, feeling the weight of his absence. For the first time, I wasn't sure if we'd come back from this. The next month was a test. I leaned on Lucas, on my other friends, on work, anything to keep moving. But Ethan's words lingered, a whisper of hope I didn't want to hear. I wanted to be angry, to hate him for not loving me back. But I couldn't. He was still Ethan, still the guy who'd carried me through the worst days of my life. One night, Lucas invited me to an art gallery opening, his work on display. He was nervous, his usual confidence replaced by a quiet vulnerability. As I watched him talk about his art, his passion lighting up the room, I felt a spark. Not the wildfire I felt for Ethan, but something softer, steadier, something real. Maybe this was what moving on felt like. Not forgetting, but finding room for something new. Life without Ethan's constant presence was like learning to walk again, awkward. Painful, but possible. I saw him less, but we still texted. Our conversations careful, like we were navigating a minefield. Every message from him was a reminder of what we'd been, and what we might never be again. Lucas was a lifeline. He didn't push me to talk about Ethan, but he knew. One night, over cheap wine in his tiny apartment, he asked, "You ever gonna tell me about him?" I sighed, swirling the wine in my glass. It's complicated. He smiled, gentle but knowing. Love usually is. I told him pieces of it, not the whole story, but enough. How Ethan had been my rock, my home, and how I'd broken it by wanting more. Lucas listened, his hand resting lightly on mine. And when I finished, he didn't try to fix it. He just said, "You're allowed to love him, Jamie, but you're also allowed to love yourself." His words stuck with me, a quiet permission I hadn't realized I needed. I started to let myself feel the edges of a life without Ethan at the center. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. A few weeks later, Ethan called. His voice was tense. Urgent. "Can you come over? I need to talk." My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. "What's wrong?" "Just come over, please." I found him on his balcony, a beer in hand, the city lights sprawling below. He looked tired, his usual confidence frayed. "Sarah and I broke up," he said, not looking at me. I froze, caught off guard. "What? When?" "Last week," he said, his voice flat. "It wasn't working. Hasn't been for a while." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. Sarah was good for him, and I hated seeing him hurt. "What happened?" He shrugged, staring at the horizon. "She said I wasn't all in, that I was holding back. And she was right." I didn't know what to say, so I waited. He turned to me, his eyes raw. "I think it's because of you." My breath caught. "Me?" "Not like that," he said quickly. "I mean, I don't know. I've been messed up since the cabin. Since you told me. I keep thinking about you. About us. And it's screwing with my head." I felt like I was falling. "Ethan, don't do this," I said, my voice shaking. "Don't say stuff like that unless you mean it." I don't know what I mean, he admitted, his voice breaking. I just know I miss you. I miss us. And I don't know how to fix it. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him close and tell him we'd figure it out. But I'd been down that road, and it only led to pain. You can't fix this by breaking up with Sarah, I said, or by trying to be something you're not. I'm not trying to be anything, he said, frustrated. I love you, Jamie. Not the way you want. Maybe. But I do. And losing you is killing me. Those words were everything and nothing. They were the closest he'd ever come to giving me hope. But they weren't enough. I love you too, I said, my voice barely a whisper. But I can't be your backup plan. I can't keep waiting for you to figure out what I mean to you. He looked at me, his eyes glistening. I don't want you to wait. I just want you in my life. I nodded, my chest tight. I'll always be in your life, Ethan. But not like before. I need to take care of myself. He didn't argue, but the silence that followed was heavy with loss. When I left his apartment, I felt lighter and heavier at the same time, like I'd set down a burden but picked up a new one. The next few months were a slow rebuilding. Lucas and I grew closer, our relationship deepening into something real. He wasn't Ethan, and I was learning to be okay with that. He was kind, steady, and he saw Minute just the parts one showed the world, but the parts one hid. Ethan and I saw each other sparingly, coffee here, a quick lunch there. Each time, it hurt a little less. I started to see him as my friend again, not the center of my universe. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One day, he texted me a photo of the cabin, the hot tub gleaming under the stars. Miss this place, he wrote. Miss you. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. I wanted to write back, to tell him I missed him too. But instead, I set the phone down and turned to Lucas, who was sketching on the couch beside me. You okay? He asked, his eyes soft. Yeah, I said, and for the first time in a long time, I meant it. Time has a way of softening sharp edges. 6 months after that night on Ethan's balcony, I was finding my footing. Lucas and I were steady, not perfect, but real. He made me laugh, challenged me, and reminded me I was more than my longing for someone I couldn't have. But Ethan was still there, a quiet ache in the background of my life. We met up for his birthday, a low-key dinner at his favorite burger joint. He was lighter now, more like the Ethan I'd grown up with. But there was a new weight to him too. He'd been single since Sarah, throwing himself into work and pick-up basketball games. He didn't talk about it, but I could tell he was searching for something. You look good, he said, grinning over his burger. Happy? I am, I said, and it wasn't a lie. Lucas had become my safe place, a harbor after years of storms. What about you? You doing okay? He shrugged, his smile fading. Getting there. It's been weird without you around as much. I nodded, the familiar guilt tugging at me. I needed to figure some stuff out. I know, he said, his eyes meeting mine. I'm proud of you, man. For real. Those words hit harder than I expected. Ethan had always been my cheerleader. But hearing it now, after everything, felt like a gift. Thanks, I said, my voice thick. Means a lot. We didn't talk about the cabin, or my confession, or the space between us. But for the first time in months, it felt like we were us again, just two guys, sharing fries and dumb stories. No expectations. That summer, Ethan invited me to the cabin again. Just a weekend, he said over the phone. Like old times. Bring Lucas if you want. I hesitated. The cabin was sacred ground. a place tied to my best and worst memories. But Lucas was excited, curious about the place I'd talked so much about. And I didn't want to keep running from the past. The three of us drove up together, the mountains rising around us like old friends. Ethan was his charming self, cracking jokes with Lucas, but I caught the way his eyes lingered on me, a mix of nostalgia and something unspoken. At the cabin, we fell into an easy rhythm hiking, fishing, grilling. Lucas fit in effortlessly, his quiet humor balancing Ethan's energy. But the hot tub was still there, a silent reminder of that night. I avoided it, sticking to the porch instead, until Ethan called me out. "You scared of the hot tub now?" he teased, tossing a towel at me. I laughed, shaking my head. "Maybe." Lucas raised an eyebrow, sensing the history but not pushing. "You guys have a lot of stories here." "Huh?" "Too many," Ethan said, his grin softening. "Jamie's practically family." That word family hit me hard. It was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Not anymore. That night, while Lucas slept, Ethan and I sat by the fire pit, the stars bright above us. "I'm glad you came," he said, his voice low. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "But I'm glad too." He looked at me, his eyes steady. "I've been thinking a lot. About what you said. About us." My heart skipped, but I kept my voice even. "Yeah. I was scared," he said, staring into the flames. "When you told me. Not because of you, but because I didn't want to lose what we had. I still don't." "You won't," I said, and I meant it. "But it's different now. It has to be." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I know. I want you to be happy, Jamie. Really happy." "I'm getting there," I said, and for the first time, I believed it. We sat in silence, the fire crackling between us. It wasn't closure. Not exactly. But it was close. A new kind of peace, built on honesty instead of secrets. The rest of the weekend was lighter. Lucas and I held hands by the lake, and Ethan didn't flinch. He even teased us, his old playfulness back. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. When we drove back to Denver, I felt a shift. Ethan was still my best friend, my family, but he wasn't my everything anymore. And that was okay. Fall came again, a year after that night in the hot tub. Life had settled into a new normal. Lucas and I were serious now, talking about moving in together. Ethan was dating again, a new girl named Mia who made him laugh in a way I hadn't seen in a while. We were all growing, changing, but still tethered by the years we'd shared. One crisp October evening, Ethan invited us to a bonfire at his place. It was a small group of old friends, new ones, the air filled with laughter and the smell of burning wood. I watched Ethan across the fire, his arm around Mia, his smile easy. For the first time, I didn't feel the old ache. I felt free. Lucas squeezed my hand, pulling me close. "You good?" he whispered. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Really good." Later, Ethan pulled me aside, handing me a beer. "Can I say something?" he asked, his voice low. "Always," I said, bracing myself. He took a deep breath, his eyes steady. "I'm sorry for any time I made this harder for you. I didn't get it. Not really. Until you were honest with me. It made me look at myself, at us, in a way I never had to before." I nodded, my throat tight. "You don't have to apologize, Ethan. You were always there for me." "I know," he said, his smile soft. "But I want you to know I see you now. All of you. And I'm so damn proud of who you are. I blinked back tears, not trusting my voice. Instead, I hugged him. The kind of hug we hadn't shared in years, fierce, honest, unbroken. The bonfire burned late into the night. And as I sat between Lucas and Ethan, I realized something. Love wasn't just the wildfire I'd felt for Ethan all those years. It was this, too, the quiet, steady warmth of friendship, of chosen family, of a life built on truth. I'd spent so long thinking love had to be all or nothing, that if Ethan didn't love me the way I loved him, it was a loss. But it wasn't. Love was the cabin, the hot tub, the fights, the silences, the rebuilding. It was Lucas's hand in mine, Ethan's laugh across the fire, the knowledge that we'd all come through something and were still here. As the flames died down, I looked at the stars, the same ones we'd sat under a year ago. Back then, I'd been drowning in a secret, terrified of losing what mattered most. Now, I was standing on solid ground, surrounded by people who loved me for who I was. Ethan caught my eye, raising his beer in a silent toast. I raised mine back, a smile tugging at my lips. We weren't the same, but we were still us. And that was enough. The journey hadn't been easy. It had been messy, painful, full of missteps and hard truths. But it had led me here to a place where I could love Ethan as my friend, love Lucas as my partner, and love myself most of all. That was the meaning I'd been searching for, the one worth every tear, every doubt, every moment of courage. And as the fire turned to embers, I knew I'd carry that truth with me, always.